Well, welcome to another episode of Weird News and Wacky History. A look behind the scenes throughout the years. I'm your host, Pastor Roland Moss, that old history dude, with a program today called Fly Away. Enjoy. No sooner did the first passenger step foot aboard the earliest aircraft than it became abundantly clear that someone needed to care for their needs. Airline execs saw this as an opportunity to hire their sons. Known as couriers, they only lasted until the October of 1929 stock market crash forced massive cuts. However, that left serving beverages and food as the responsibility of the co-pilot. Obviously not an ideal solution. Licensed pilot Ellen Church quickly discovered that there was no place in the cockpit for women flyers in those early days, so she used her skills as a registered nurse to get hired as a flying medical attendant, convincing airline officials that women staff could care for the needs of nervous passengers. She first took flight in this role for Boeing Air Transport on May 15, 1930. Her foresight would prove to be a lifesaver a few short years later. On a foggy April 7, 1936, a Western Airlines DC-2 crashed into Cheat Mountain south of Uniontown, Pennsylvania, killing 12 of the 14 passengers and crew. Although severely injured herself, flying nurse Nellie Granger walked to the nearest phone, reported the incident, then returned to the wreckage to care for the two survivors. Air hostessing proved to be much more than just a pretty face. So, who designed those early aircraft? Well, you might be surprised. Following the unsatisfactory performance of their 1900 and 1901 gliders, the Wright brothers built between 100 and 200 airfoil models to test in their homemade wind tunnel in Dayton, Ohio. From September through December of 1901, they compiled the most comprehensive database of wing design ever yet assembled. No wonder they succeeded where so many others failed. But then, Albert Einstein decided to try his hand at airplane design. In August of 1916, Einstein wrote a technical paper that ignored the vast amount of information amassed by the Wrights. The frizzy-haired genius came up with his own revolutionary design for an airfoil featuring a large hump on top of the wing to supposedly create additional lift. With great anticipation, the new design was tested along with 99 other wing designs. Of the 100, Einstein's came in third from the bottom. The test pilot of a plane built using his wing design reported that he was, quote, overjoyed to find himself on firm ground and still in one piece, unquote, since the plane flew like, quote, a pregnant duck, unquote. Einstein's response, that is what can happen to a man who thinks a lot but reads little, unquote. The eccentric genius shelved the flying ideas and stuck to his theory of relativity instead. And with the arrival of World War II, some planes didn't even exist. B-17s bombed the enemy into submission in World War II, and escort fighters protected them along the way. In appreciation, the guys of the 303rd Bomb Group threw a wild party for their fighter pilot friends of the 20th Fighter Group on the night of July 23rd and 24th, 1944. After an evening of drinking, pilot Mel Schulstad decided to fly them home in Tugboat Annie, possibly the oldest B-17 still in service in England. Woozily, Schulstad accidentally landed the ancient B-17 with the wheels up, spreading the ancient aircraft from one end of the runway to the other, at 5 o'clock in the morning, with no co-pilot. Thankfully, Schulstad and the fighter pilots were uninjured, but the destruction of a $3.14 million aircraft in today's money simply couldn't be ignored. Then Mel McCoy, the chief engineering officer who did repairs of the 303rd's aircraft, revealed the strange truth about Tugboat Annie. The airplane Schulstad had crashed wasn't actually a real aircraft. It had been built from spare parts of other older planes. Brigadier General Travis, faced with the wreck of a fictitious plane, concluded, obviously, if the airplane never existed, it could never have been in an accident, and so that's the end of the matter. Breathing a huge sigh of relief, Schulstad realized that he was off the hook. Sometimes the air war takes brains, not just bullets and bombs. Anyone who lives beneath the glide path of a local airport knows just how noisy it can be. Commercial artist Helmut G. Winter of Munich, Germany, was fed up with a steady stream of low-flying fighter planes from the nearby Luftwaffe base. Some passed just 450 feet overhead, while choppers were coming in a mere 150 feet above his roof. Advertising in his local newspaper for anti-aircraft weapons with sufficient ammunition required for the restoration of peace and order in western Munich's airspace brought offers of machine guns, a flak gun with 9,000 rounds of ammo, and an 88 millimeter gun with an entire crew of ex-sergeants to man it. Every suggestion was way too permanent, so Helmut got to work himself. The 48-year-old decided to use what he had at hand and created a homemade catapult based on a design by Leonardo da Vinci. A massive 6-foot bow mounted to a sturdy base hurled ammunition through a pipe at the offending aircraft. Rightfully worried that stones or other heavy projectiles might injure neighbors when they fell back to Earth, he decided to use baseball-sized potato dumplings instead. On Saturday, February 25th, 1967, Helmut opened fire. The airbase promptly changed their flight plans. Mission accomplished. And that's about all the time we have left for this episode of Weird News and Wacky History, a look behind the scenes throughout the years. I'm your host, Pastor Roland Moss, that old history dude, hoping that all your news may be just a little bit weird.